this video, I'm going to describe the constructing evidence-based explanations practice in the context of the Megadrought and the Colorado River Basin data puzzle. So the goal here is for students to finalize new understandings, new science ideas as they relate to the investigative question by constructing explanatory models. So they're pulling all the pieces together to construct this explanatory model. But before they get there, I think it's best to first define and describe what a model is, what it looks like. What are the signs and symbols that can be used to connect the different parts, the different concepts that need to be included in an explanatory model. Then students then try to figure out what are the ideas, what are the concepts that are needed in this explanatory model. And together as a class, you'll construct a gotta have it checklist. So these are the ideas, the concepts that you just gotta have in your explanatory model. It's helpful in these checklists to also reference any evidence that you may have obtained that support the ideas, the concepts that are going to go into that model. And the last thing, part of this practice, students will construct models individually or in pairs, and then students should have an opportunity to look at one another's models to learn with and from one another as it relates to the Megadrought in the Colorado River Basin and beyond. So diving into what is a final model? What is a model? And so after gathering evidence through the interactive reading and the temperature and precipitation data interpretation, it's time to construct this final model for the investigative question: what is causing the Megadrought in the Colorado River Basin? We got to first figure out what a model even looks like. And so to do that, in the slides we've included kind of a simple definition of a model and have students analyze an example model. And so scientists using models, which can include an annotated sketch, which is what we'll have students construct in this resource, to visualize explanations for questions that they're investigating. And so in a model, we need to include the relevant parts or the relevant concepts. We need to be able to connect those parts with different symbols so that we can show how those parts relate to one another in the system. And then if we have evidence, any data that supports our thinking can go in there as well. And so before we construct a model for the Megadrought phenomena, let's look at a model for something that students may be more familiar with, a model as it relates to the Marvel movie Black Panther. In particular, the question, why does the Black Panther get stronger after being punched? And so I have students look for these three components in the context of this example model about the Black Panther to hopefully help them become familiar with models and then help them see some of the different signs and symbols and things that they can do in their annotated sketches in their final explanatory models. After looking at this example, I think it's important to reinforce some of the different signs and symbols that students can use, potentially even print this slide out and have it on student tables or something to refer to. But going through this and thinking about arrows as being useful, of showing movement, or connection between things. Often we encourage students to use keys, and so defining what different symbols mean. Using zoom in windows to show what's happening at really small scales. Text boxes can be helpful to describe different parts, and timelines and partitions are useful in showing changes over time. And once we've kind of looked at those examples and those signs and symbols, it's time for students to develop this gotta have checklist. So there's a space on their student worksheet to work independently or in pairs to create a bulleted list of ideas, science concepts, and evidence that they think should go in a final model explaining this investigative question: what is causing the Megadrought in the Colorado River Basin? It's often helpful after students have created their own gotta have checklist to develop a whole class checklist, having students share their ideas and evidence, and then the class come into consensus, agreeing upon those ideas and evidence before putting it on the whole class checklist. So a strategy that's been useful for many teachers in helping support students make models. After this gotta have checklist has been developed, it's time for students to work individually or in pairs to construct their final explanatory model, their annotated sketch for the question, what is causing the mega drought in the Colorado River Basin? So students should be considering what are the relevant parts? How do we connect these different parts or concepts, and what evidence do we have referring to that gotta have checklist, and annotating this graphic here that can be found on the student worksheet. So you can see we've already added a couple symbols for as a key for students, and they can add more to show the changes over time, why we have this mega drought in the present day. After students have constructed their models, we encourage you to give students an opportunity to share their models. A popular way to do this is through a gallery walk, where student models maybe are up around the room or on desks, and students have an opportunity to roam and check out one another's models. We want to really emphasize that learning is collaborative. We want the students learning with and from one another, and these gallery walks are an effective way to make that happen. After students have had an opportunity to check out one another's models, the final piece of this constructing evidence-based explanations practice is to have students think about the investigative question or the important science ideas explored here in the context of maybe a different phenomena or a different setting, or maybe thinking about it in a different way through this digging deeper question. I misspoke. There's a video that students can watch to reinforce the mega drought models. But connecting ideas from that mega drought data puzzle resource in their final model to something else is the purpose of the digging deeper question. And so we have students explore what factors other than temperature and precipitation, which is linked to evapotranspiration, are contributing to the decline in water levels across the Colorado River Basin. Do you think that there's anything we can do to reverse this mega drought? And so we want students to think about water use and water conservation as important in kind of combating this mega drought. And there are 40+ million people in the Southwest, and so how are we going to cope? How are we going to adapt? How can we create some more resiliency in that area? With that, that's the end of the mega drought in the Colorado River Basin data puzzle.